Before we jump into today's conversation, I want to give a big shout out to the sponsor of this episode, Fleet Feet Treasure Valley. If you're a runner or a walker, you know how much the right gear matters. Whether you're training for your next ultra, just getting started and feeling overwhelmed, or you're a seasoned vet who knows exactly what you need, Fleet Feet's got you covered. Their team isn't just knowledgeable, but they're extremely passionate. They'll talk shoes, nutrition, hydration, and gear all day long, but what really sets them apart is how they listen. They take the time to get it right so you can keep chasing whatever finish line you're after. With 2 locations, one in the Village in Meridian and another out in Nampa off Carcher in the Boulevard, Fleet Feet is much more than just a store. It's a hub for a like-minded community, and it's also a place where runners of all types can feel seen, supported, and fired up to accomplish your goals. Swing by and tell them Jake from Run From The Norm sent you. You can also check out the additional information in the show notes to learn more. Fleet Feet Treasure Valley, our goal is to help you move pain-free. Howdy, friends, and welcome to episode 22 of the Run From The Norm podcast. I'm your host, Jake Reynolds. This episode is part 2 of my conversation with Carolyn Garriott, and if you heard the first part, you already know this one was building towards something really, really big. In this follow-up, Carolyn takes us inside her 7-day battle with the Arizona Monster 300, a brutal ultramarathon that pushed her to the edge physically, mentally, and emotionally. We talk about trailside blister surgery, the power of a 10-minute nap in the dirt, and what it's like to face 90-degree heat in the final miles with no water left and no guarantee you'll make it to the finish line. But more than the miles, this is a story about resilience. It's also a story about surrender. It's about trusting your instincts when everything around you says to quit. And most of all, it's about the kind of strength that only reveals itself in the darkest, most uncertain moments. It's not just an ultra recap. This is what happens when the human spirit refuses to break. It's time to get into it. I think you know what time it is. It's time to run from the norm. Carolyn,
Hey.
how are you doing?
Well,
How are you feeling?
I'm actually better than I expected to
Yeah?
be. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
hey, just so you know, I hit record just when we started, so I can do any editing and all that, but just so you know, we are recording.
Okay, no problem.
So I thought this would be super cool because our first conversation, we talked about the Arizona Monster 300 miles, and then you just finished it, 7 days. I mean, this is Sunday, so you're barely a day and a half out of it. What was this experience like for you?
Oh my gosh.
Where do you start?
Where do you start? Yeah. In hindsight, at the moment, I mean, I just got back into my home and I've been sitting here kind of relaying all the pieces, and it's sort of floating back in piece by piece. But
Does it even seem real yet?
no, I'm still thinking, did that happen? Was that a thing?
That's crazy. 7 days.
Yeah.
So let's start from the beginning of it then. So when we talked, you were on taper, you were getting ready for it. I think we had just a few days until you were going to head down. So tell me about the trip down, what it was like when you got there, and the build up to the start.
Flew down on, we started on the 4th. So I flew down on the 2nd. And I like to take a day before an event to just really chill and get my head wrapped up in what's going to happen. And then actually we went to Patagonia to do the gear check. And I think it was at that moment when I was walking across the dirt field, going to the booth where you have to do your medical check and your gear check and your watch check, that it started to become real.
Hitting you. It's like, oh my God, I'm doing this.
Started to become real. And what was really nice was I ran into Andy Glaze right away.
Oh, nice.
So it was like I looked up and there he was and said, "Hey, Andy, how you doing? And good race and good luck." And then a few minutes later, as I'm still approaching like the initial booth to check in, then West Plate was over there. I chatted with him for a little while. Yeah. And so I got through I think it was the medical first, and that was pretty much of a breeze. And then I went over to gear check. And as you're heading towards the gear check booth, you're like, oh man, did I get everything? I double and triple checked all my things. So they checked all my gear and I made it through that. And then went over to the watch check, and my friend Christian Vollenhofer from Vienna was there. He was the guy I paced in Moab 2 years ago who got me hooked on these long distances. And then I chatted with him and got through that. And then they gave me my bib. And the minute that I saw my name with my bib, it was like, oh my God.
It's like partial excitement, but partial fear.
Yeah. It's one of those moments where you realize that of all the things that you've prepared for, you've done all the training, you've done all the eating well and the sleeping well and the tapering well. There's nothing left for you to do but just trust your instinct and trust your mind and let it go and just be in the moment of the event. So
you were able to do that then?
Yes. And I was just sort of focused on just trust yourself. Trust yourself. You've done everything you can. If you feel like there's nothing else that you can do to get ready for this, then just trust it and let it happen. Just let it organically happen. So I went into this race without any expectation other than I want to finish, no matter how hard it gets. And so that was the day before. And then race morning, we had to get up to Superior, which is 300 miles away.
Oh, geez. Did you sleep? Because you were saying it had stage starts, and I think your start was like 1 or 2 p.m.?
Yes. My particular wave started at 1. There was 4 waves, 1 at 11, 1 at 12, 1 at 1, and 1 at 2 p.m. And I was in the 1 o'clock wave. And so I was able to get a good night's sleep. I kind of prefer those afternoon starts because you're not so stressed out.
Yeah. And I assume they shuttle you up to the start, or do you have to get yourself up there?
You had an option of getting a bus that morning from Patagonia, Arizona, but that would require you getting up at 4 in the morning to catch the 5:30 bus, and then a 3-hour drive, and then you still have to sit around and wait until 1 p.m. And I just thought, oh man, that is a rough way to start. Yeah. So I was like, can anybody give me a lift? But my pacer and his mother was able to join us. And so his mother gave us a ride to the start line, which was tremendously helpful.
That's awesome. So what was the start like when you get there? I assume that the anxiety and excitement's all building.
Yeah, I get to the start and another big field and the banner's there. We have to do another gear check. And then that's when they give you your tracking device. And I didn't realize that they'd given me the wrong tracking device. My bib number correlates to my tracking device, and somebody gave me the wrong one. And I'm just walking away. And this other gentleman who was running things there said, wait a second, what number do you have? And I said, I assume it's mine. And it wasn't. It was 225, which belonged to a gentleman. And then mine was 255. So they swapped me out and gave me the correct tracker. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because a day later, going into like the second night, I run into this runner. We happen to be going the same pace. And I noticed his bib number on the back of his backpack.
And he's 225.
It happens to be 225. I have a story for you.
Oh, that's funny. Did you guys share some time after that? Share some miles?
We did. We shared that second night, which was great to have a buddy through the second night because I wasn't able to grab my pacer until mile 105, which led me into the third day. So we did one of the biggest climbs, number 225 and I.
225 and 255.
Yeah, we did this pretty big climb the second day and then got into mile 105 where I could pick up my guy, my pacer.
How were you feeling at that point by mile 105? Were you feeling like you were solid, body felt good, your nutrition, hydration strategy was working? How were your feet? Were you wearing your special socks?
I was wearing my special socks,
Nice.
man. Yes, I was. My alpaca socks. And so I wore a one size larger shoe, which protected my toes.
Smart.
But I think what happened is the back of the shoe, because you're wearing a larger shoe, the back of the shoe where the heel is also larger.
Oh.
And that was sliding around more. And so I did develop tremendous blisters on my heels.
Ouch.
And a couple of big giant blood blisters on the insides of each heel. So,
and that was at mile 100 that you were already experiencing this?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What did you do?
I had prepared with a blister kit that I'd made on my own. And the minute that I started feeling anything, I just sat down and started doctoring myself. And I just
get ahead of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was
so
the
that worked.
Before you got to meet up with Pacer and hit mile 105, what was the most memorable part of it at that point? I assume you probably had to catch some sleep, or you're not going straight through one night into the second night.
Yeah, no, correct. I developed pretty early on a strategy. I wasn't tired for the first probably 18 hours or so. And I forget which aid station it was, probably the third aid station or fourth aid station. It might have been I remember it was mile 75. The first time I could see crew, but I couldn't pick up a pacer. I was getting pretty sleepy at that point. And my crew person, Laura, had her car. And so I would get to the aid station. I'd say, Laura, I need 30 minutes. So before I did anything else, I'd go to sleep. I would climb in the back car and just go to sleep, and they would set an alarm, and then I'd wake up and then I'd eat and I'd look at my feet or do whatever and then head back out. So I was averaging probably 15 to 30 minute naps each time I saw the crew car. And then I started to take trail naps, which was tremendously helpful.
We talked about that. That's interesting. You did do that.
Yeah. And I hadn't done that in Moab. And I just thought, oof, well, I better learn to do this because I'm going to need it. And what would happen is I recognized when I was getting extremely sleepy, which is different than being tired. You're physically tired, but sleepy is when you're falling asleep and you're still trying to walk straight. And I would notice that I'm walking sideways. I'm like, oh my God, I can't even maintain a straight line here. So I would sit down and I would just set my little watch and I like, okay, 10 minutes. Nap. I just need to close my eyes for 10 minutes. Even if it was just closing my eyes really helped. It's the stopping the movement for a few minutes.
How was the weather? Was it hot? Because you're in Arizona.
It was about 67 the first day, and it was a little bit warmer the second day. By the third day, it was in the 80s. It jumped. It just jumped tremendously, and that got to be
tough.
A really, really big challenge and pretty tough.
What's your average elevation for this?
I think we weren't too high, 5,500 maybe. And then depending on the climbs that you're doing, I know Mount Lemmon went up to 8,000.
Okay.
And that was a doozy of a climb, getting up and over that monster. And I think that was day 3. Mount Lemmon was day 3.
I'm sure they just you haven't really had a chance to sort out all the days yet.
Yeah. I'm looking back on what day was.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Mount Lemmon was sort of the pinnacle. So I kind of knew going in that Mount Lemmon was going to be the beast to get over. And sort of mentally, I thought, if I can get up and over that, I know I'm going to finish this race no matter.
What mile was this at roughly?
I think Mount Lemmon is at 121.
Oh, okay. So you get it somewhat early.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's after Tiger Mine where I picked up my pacer. Then we go into Oracle Aid Station and then Oracle to Mount Lemmon. So Tiger Mine was at 105. And I would say, yeah, it could even be like 145, mile 145. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Oh, I can only imagine. And so you pick up your pacer, 107-ish or so, and then does he stay with you the entire last 200 miles?
He doesn't have to, but he wanted to. He's also training for his own Moab at the end of this year and wanted to pace and to see also what the whole thing might feel like. And he's got a lot of endurance. So it worked out. It really worked out. He did stop at the very final segment. His knee was starting to really bother him a bunch. And so he took me from Tiger Mine all the way down to, it was about 166 miles for him. I think he stopped at the last aid station before the finish, Apache Springs, I think. And then I had to get from Apache Springs to the finish line.
How were you feeling at that point?
Oh, boy. Again, it was a series of each aid station, and even each aid station that we got to, we did the same thing. We would go into the aid station, find a chair, close our eyes and sleep like 30 minutes. We just go to sleep and then we would eat and pick up and take off again. And that seemed to work really, really well. It gave me enough mental clarity to like think about, okay, what's just the next segment that I need to focus on? So I only focused on the next 16 miles or the next 20 miles. That was the only thing I thought about. And that was very palatable mentally to do it that way for me.
So did you sleep it through the night too? Or were you did these power naps and you pretty much kept going otherwise night, day?
It was just power naps and kept going, power
Wow.
naps and kept going. And doing that, we were consistently 2 to 3 hours ahead of the cutoff. And that's a very comfortable place to be because you've banked a little bit of time, but also if something goes wrong, you know that you've got a 2 to 3 hour window to fix it or figure it out.
Did you have any, you said your heels, but did you have any other issues farther in the race? I can only imagine the mental and physical deterioration once you're starting to get into 150, 200, 250 miles. Did anything else flare up on you? Did you feel good otherwise?
Really exhausted physically, but I never felt like quitting until I got to the very last segment. I had a really rough last 16 miles. The temperatures had gotten up to about, I think it was close to 90 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
And we were going through the final ascending canyon. It was kind of up and down, very rocky, very hot. And
was there any air movement or was the air just still and stale?
Still and stagnant.
Oh my gosh.
And I ran out of water.
Oh no.
And there wasn't another aid station scheduled until the finish line. And I thought, oh my gosh, I could be in trouble here. You know, you get so thirsty to the point where you can't even swallow. And I'm just crawling. And I ran into a thru hiker up at the top of one of the final climbs before you descend down to the road. And he goes, hey, are you doing all right? And I said, man, I am out of water. So he gave me half of his bottle of water. And I
just
started
magic at that point.
I just started to cry. I'm like, you're like an angel right now. And I said, I'm just trying to finish this race and I'm out of water. And I feel like if I don't have any water, I'm not going to be able to finish because I had like 4 hours to finish before the final cutoff because I knew I was close to last place. And he gave me some water. And then I just said, okay, let's keep going. And then I was out of water again after I drank all that. And so then I'm barreling down this rocky canyon and I see the roadway and I'm really starting to panic because I still have 2 miles to go. And when you're that dehydrated and that out of water,
you're just delirious.
And something about running out of water for me mentally sunk me. It just sunk me. I was just
even
like,
being that close to the finish?
Even so, because it was so hot, I was so drained, and I just thought, I don't know if I can make it 2 more miles like this, and I'm going to ruin my whole race because I screwed this up. And then the way the trail hits is that you come down and you come up this embankment to the street. And I look up and there's 4 people standing at a table with water. And they had made this makeshift aid station right there at the street. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness they're standing.
Somebody's smiling on you right now.
Yeah. And I climbed up to the street and I walk across and they're like, hey, what do you need? And I said, I'm completely out of water. And they're like, oh my gosh. And so they had electrolytes and water. And I drank like 3 bottles of it immediately.
Oh my goodness.
And I sat down, I said, could you just stuff my back with ice? And so they stuffed my shirt underneath my hydration vest with just as much ice as possible. Because my heart rate, I felt like my heart rate was too high from the heat.
Oh, I bet.
And I was really breathing heavy and I was able to calm myself down. And I looked at the guy who was running it and I said, this wasn't scheduled to be here, is it? And he goes, no, the temperatures just were getting so high. We thought we'd throw some water here. And I said, thank goodness you're here. And I said, so who all's behind me? And he goes, you're it.
You're it. They were out there for you.
And I said, there's nobody else. He goes, no. I said, everyone's waiting for me.
Oh my gosh.
And he goes, yeah. I'm like, oh man, I better go. So I get up and I start walking and I walk about a mile before I'm starting to feel like I can do some shuffling.
At what point does it switch for you where you're like, I'm doing it. I'm going to finish it?
There's a stretch of road that goes straight finally, and you can see the finish line off in the right-hand corner of the dirt. And now I could start to hear cowbells, and I see some people on the street. And then my pacer, Brad, who had not done that segment, he was standing there and he comes running up to me, and he had my daughters on FaceTime so they could be with me as I'm coming into the finish. And I started to cry, and I was just like, I can't believe I'm finishing this thing. And I ran and kind of shuffled into the chute, and it was so exciting. All the people there had made like a human bridge, and I ran through all the people that were standing there and cheering, and it was so surreal. And I'm about to cry thinking about it because it was just so wonderful and welcoming and lovely, and everybody was so supportive. And I got to the finish, and they took the last mug shot, and I was able to pick out my buckle, and to me that was
oh my goodness,
so precious, because I remember not finishing Moab. I really missed that feeling of accomplishment. Like I didn't finish what I came to do. And this time was, I did it. I finally did it. And
it was multiplied. I mean, 7 days out there going through Arizona of all places. I mean, that is, it's dry and hot. And so I got a little rising fan badge they were trying to give me for Destination Trail because I was, watching and trying to see the updates for you. And so I saw when you came through and they posted all the pictures of you and everybody doing the human tunnel. It's giving me goosebumps right now of the human tunnel in your face. And it was just, God, it makes me emotional. So I had to save every single one of those pictures because you could just see it. It was such, I can only imagine what it was like for you. Because just for me as a watcher, seeing the pictures and finally seeing that you had crossed the line, it was like, oh my God, she did it. It was just absolutely amazing. I wish I could have been there to experience that moment with you, but I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. You're battling day in and day out, and pretty much you're by yourself, or you have your pacer, or you might run into other runners along the way. But basically you're so focused on each segment and what do I have to do? What do I have to do? What do I have to do? And
you're so focused on the tactical components of just keeping yourself moving.
It's really true. And when I sit here and think of it in hindsight, I think that was 7 days of that. Yeah. Although it didn't feel like 7 days while I was doing it because I was so hyper-focused on the task
on
at
the
hand.
moment, yeah.
And then to finally get to the finish line and there's all these people there.
And it brings it back to the fact that it's not just your personal kind of spiritual journey. There's so much more to this whole experience.
Yes. And I have been in that bridge celebrating someone else finishing. And I always thought, wow, what a fight to the finish this was for this person. And it brought me as much joy to watch someone else accomplish that as it did being that person.
Great point.
At the very last.
Of how it impacts everybody, and it's so much bigger than, it's one person's journey, but it's also so much bigger than that one person.
Yes, and it just the sheer testament to the spirit of that community who rallies behind you, no matter who you are.
Yeah. And I think also we talked about it a little bit before. It's also what Candace has built with Destination Trail, from where it started to what it's turned into, to your point, just this community and the outpouring of compassion and support and joy to see somebody have this success, this extremely difficult challenge and success. And I don't know if you can distill it down or if you've even had time to process it to this point yet, but is there like a single takeaway, one key thing now that you're done that really stands out to you about this whole experience?
That there's no limit to the human spirit.
Yeah.
No limit.
I love that. Absolutely.
Yeah. If you believe in yourself, there's no limit.
And I'll add an aside to that. I think there's no limit, but it also doesn't take away from the preparation. You could put yourself out there in the environment and in the elements, but I think your success was you were ready when you got to the line. You had done all the things, you had prepared, you were in a good headspace, and you just had to now go out and do the thing and keep yourself in the moment.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to surrender to it. You can have all your batteries charged. You can have your flashlights ready. You can have your battery packs, your spare battery packs. You can have your gloves and all the bells and whistles that you need to get through it. But still, it seems like everything goes wrong. And then it's just a matter of problem solving. And you just have to surrender to each problem as it comes up. And then, the blisters on your feet or the running out of water. And you just keep problem solving and mitigating and problem solving. And I think by the time that I'd gotten down to the last 2 miles, if there was any one moment that almost broke me, it was running out of water. And I just thought, I can't believe it. This is the thing that's going to take me out. And happily, it was at the end where there was a way to get more water still.
That had to have been such an emotional swing because you're out there for so many days. You're in day 7, all these miles. I can imagine points where it's soul crushing. Like, how am I going to keep going? How am I going to keep doing this? It's dark or it's hot and you're coming to this end. And now you're in this headspace where it's like, I've done all this, but even though I'm so close, I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to do it. I can only imagine how heavy that feels.
It was really heavy because I thought the state of my physical body at this moment, I don't know if I can walk fast enough to get there.
Oh my gosh.
In 2 miles with the time I had left. And it sounds like a lot of time, say 3 hours to get to a finish line. But when you are that depleted and you have no energy left and your mental state has gone south, that was soul crushing. And to see them there with water turned everything around. I knew in that moment, like, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be able to do this. I just need a minute to get some liquids down and then I'll just start moving again. And,
it's crazy because it's not a small thing, but it is such a small thing that just completely flipped that switch for you to where now you know you're going to do it. You know that you're going to finish.
Yeah. And I remember walking. I walked out of the 2 miles. I walked the first mile. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm the last person on this course. Everybody who is a volunteer or at aid stations, they're waiting for me to come in. And I'm trying hard to get there, but I can't move any faster. And I kept thinking, this is such a poignant moment. I'm going to make it and I'm going to start running as soon as I can do it. And I'm grateful for this experience and to have pushed this hard and to keep going under duress and to not lose sight of the goal. And that is your mental game. And your mental game is what gets you to the end, despite all of the challenges and all of the problem solving that you have to do. So,
which I can imagine only makes the moment that much more amazing when they are waiting there for you, but they're waiting there to celebrate. They're waiting there to share that moment with you. And I can only imagine it had to just be absolutely electric.
It was like feeling like a big part of a family. You knew that they were happy for you, like genuinely.
Yes.
You are genuinely happy for the person who just fought and fought and fought and fought till the end and they get there. Because everybody, I think, has had those experiences in their life and can relate to that and definitely felt genuinely just
cared about.
What amazing experience. I'll never forget.
So you cross the line. Things finally start to kind of settle back down to reality and you stop spinning. What happens then when you cross the line? Do you just collapse? Do you, go find a beer? What do you do?
I had all these different people came up to me and hugged me. People I don't even know, different runners, different crew.
So happy for you.
Yeah, and just come up and just give me a hug. And then they corralled me over to the final mugshot. And I just started to cry again. And I was just like, how do I do this? And then after that, they took me over to where I could pick out a buckle, which were beautiful. And they were made by hand by a local artist. And what's nice about them is it says Arizona 200.
300.
Or 300 rather. And then inside the layout, they selected and dried different bushes or leaves or flowers from Arizona. And they inlaid them into the metal itself, the buckle. And so you take a piece of it home with you. You take a piece of Arizona home with you, part of the trail that you were on. And it's just a lovely sentiment.
I can't imagine. The come down from that, I'm sure you're still spinning. And I'm sure your body's happy to be able to sit down and rest too. But
yeah. And it's funny when you are fighting day in, day out, it becomes your new normal, right? So you're like every segment not sleeping, another segment not sleeping. And then suddenly you're finished. It takes a minute for you to think, I don't have to get up and go anywhere. I don't have to leave. I can sit here.
Right.
I don't have any more segments to do.
Well, there's probably going to be some recovery now too, because like you say, that becomes your new normal to where now you almost have to reset your biorhythm to where, you stay up during the day, sleep all the way through the night. It probably takes some recovery now just to get back to some semblance of, I guess you'd call it normal.
It feels a bit like jet lag where you get tired out of nowhere for no reason. Or you're just like, I have to go to sleep now. And then you wake up a couple hours later and then you're fine for a little while. And so I'm hoping to be able to get back into normal nighttime sleeping in the next day or so. But my body feels remarkably well. I'm really surprised that other than my feet, I thought my back would hurt me from carrying my pack that far, and it seems to be fine. And the only thing I can think of maybe is because I was moving at a slower pace than I was in Moab. I was really pushing hard in Moab, which might have led to why I was ready to quit when I was ready to quit. But here I really focused on don't go out so fast, slow down a little bit.
Be
and
patient.
I think there's something to be said for that in terms of the stress it puts on your body.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's even for the shorter distances too. That's, I think, where so many people go out fast and burn themselves up, whether it's even 50 Ks or 100 Ks, 100 mile, all the way up to these. It really, I think, comes down to being smart in the early stages to set yourself up for success in the long run.
Yeah, I had hoped to go out halfway and then pick up my pace the second half, but fierce heat came in and I don't think anybody was ready for that. I think everybody was slowed down a little bit by that. But the good news is that they had a 75% finish rate, which was really high.
That's extremely high for any ultra.
Yeah, it's really high.
Well, it probably not only speaks volumes to the preparation of people that are towing the line for something like this, but again, I think it probably speaks volumes also for Destination Trail and the event that they're putting on and the support that they have out there for all these participants to make sure that they have what they need to accomplish this massive goal.
Yes. And I have to say that at each aid station that we went to, there were people there ready to address any medical issues for you. There were people there ready to cook for you. There were people ready to shuffle you off to a sleeping area. They were very attentive. And then they were making sure that you got up in time. They also made sure, like I had gone to sleep on a little mattress on the side of the road at one of the aid stations. And I said, can I grab just like 30 minutes? He goes, sure. And I set my alarm, but he came around to make sure, he goes, I want to make sure you're getting up so you don't miss your cutoff. So they were that attuned to people.
That's
they were really
awesome.
Yeah, because what if I didn't hear my alarm?
Right.
I just slept. So they were really watching out for runners there because they knew how important it was for all of us to keep moving.
Well, if they wouldn't have came around and you would have slept through your alarm, that one small thing could have completely changed the outcome of this event for you.
Yeah. And then chasing cutoffs becomes its own stress.
Absolutely, which that multiplies on your mental state and your body if you're constantly in that heightened level of stress, just feeling like you have to push harder than you probably do at that moment.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that's the one thing I wanted to never have to deal with. And I was able to do that for this race, which was good.
So first, I just have to tell you how happy I am for you. And truly, from the bottom of my heart, congratulations. I know how much this meant to you. But
Thank you.
I don't want to end with something too crazy and altruistic, but I want to let you just now take time to sit in it and appreciate the experience and what you've just done. But I do want to ask you a couple last questions here just to wrap this thing up and then just let you have this time to, again, be embraced in this hug of the accomplishment of what you've done. It's absolutely amazing. It blows my mind. But the two things I want to ask you is, what would you tell the you at the start of the race, knowing now that you got through it and what you experienced? What would you tell the person at the beginning?
Trust your instincts because they're correct.
They definitely proved to be, didn't they?
They're correct. Yeah. You know what to do. Just listen.
You just gave me goosebumps. I got the goosies.
Yeah.
It truly amazing.
Trust yourself because it's all inside you. You have what you need inside you. You just have to believe it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. The one last question then is, I'm really curious. What did your daughters have to say?
Oh my gosh. When I told them I was going to do this race, my middle daughter, Nicole, she said, you're doing what now?
It's how far?
I said 300. She said, as in 300 miles? And I said, yeah. And she said, are you sure that's a good thing to be doing? And then when I was coming down the last final stretch, Brad, my pacer, had them on FaceTime. And as I'm running, he's got the phone so I can see them, they can see me. And I'm yelling at them like, I love you so much. And they're like, Mama, you're doing it. They're like, we're so proud of you. And so they were there with me through it. And they were so excited. And I just fed off that energy. And it just made me so happy to have them with me.
And I bet they were so absolutely proud.
I think so. I think that they see they can achieve something if they work really hard for it, that no matter what the goal is to strive and strive and strive, because you can achieve big things if you want them.
And never give up.
Never give up.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Carolyn, I could not be any more excited and proud of you myself and happy for you, even in the short amount of time that we've had the opportunity to chat and get to know each other. But I really wanted this opportunity to hear your story of the Arizona Monster 300 miler and your successful navigation of this incredible challenge. And I'm so happy for you.
Well, thank you. And I really appreciate getting a chance to chat with you.
Absolutely. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to bookend this. We're going to release the first episode as kind of part one, and then we're going to share this final chapter, which is the culmination of a successful adventure. And I'm so appreciative that you were willing to share this with me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, of course.
Well, I look forward to our next discussion, and I won't worry about asking what is next on your bucket list, because I think you just need to sit in this for a little while.
Yeah.
All right, Carolyn. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your evening. Take care, and we'll definitely be talking again soon.
Okay. Thank you, Jay.
And that wraps up another episode of the Run from the Norm podcast and the incredible story of Carolyn and her adventure at the Arizona Monster 300. Carolyn, thank you for your vulnerability, your wisdom, and for reminding us that legacy isn't built by luck. It's built by lacing up, showing up, and refusing to quit, even when everything in you says to stop. And to you, my dear listener, thank you for being here. If you've been enjoying these conversations and want to dig deeper into what we're building, head over to www.runfromthenorm.com. You'll find blog posts, past podcast episodes, our monthly newsletter, and even some merch to help you support the journey. And that newsletter is free. It's full of extras, and it's the best way to stay connected to all the stories that we're telling. Until next time, stay curious, keep moving forward, and whatever you do, run from the norm.
Check that mic, make sure it sound right, boy.